Hi, everybody. Welcome to MentorTime. For those who are just joining for the first time, we're happy you're here. I've enabled captions because many of you know me. I speak fast. I know I do, but also to make it easier for you when you go back and watch the recording when I send it out. We will do a brief review of today's topic, and I have one question that Stephanie asked me to answer that I do want to talk about, but it goes along with the theme today. Just a reminder, if you don't want to be on camera, please go ahead and take yourself off. So the topic this week is showing your experience and showing your skills. Here's the bottom line up front. Sue's been doing a lot of thinking over the last few weeks and actually a couple months. I talked to Ron a couple months ago about, I think I need to change this and change that. So there's a lot of today that happens to be time to refresh how we're thinking about things. Here's what we're going to be covering. First of all, what does it mean to more effectively show experience and skills? And then new opportunities to show both together. And this is, I wandered into what it's usually the green section, right? What I always leave with what should you do, but I do have a few actions. So most of this will be actionable. And as we go along, I want to explain what's changing in the work world, which we'll be talking about, I think at the end of, in a few weeks is when we're doing our quarterly update on what's happening with work. All right, let's get started with how do you show this more effectively? Some of you have been here when I've said the goal is the scroll. In this case, we want people to scroll down past just opening up our resume if we make it that far, or getting the job promotion, whatever we're doing. So there's a couple reasons for this. We've talked about, and in fact, for those that are new, we have a whole mentor time on this about improving scannability. I didn't call it that in the title of the mentor time was on your CV and your resume as a data visualization activity, how and in what way you need to think about the data you're putting out there. But we talk a lot, Ron and I talk a lot, and those of you who took the course know this really well, that you need to improve scannability so that the reader, the person on the other side of the conversation, the person who's listening to you can understand what you're trying to say. I've always had a focus on the first screen and the first half of the page back when we were printing things out, but definitely the first whole page. You've got to make it memorable. That's where your important information is. But then I get stuck when I see people send me CVs, and this is definitely something in the US. It is a very common trait, and they're much longer than this. They start the resume with the heading information, then there's this big block of skills, and they do this and they do this. Sue's laundry list. It's all these different bullets. Or they look like this with a cute little icon. That's cute too. In neither case can I tell exactly what these people are trying to emphasize. The bottom one has research, event planning, problem solving. I don't know. Those who've worked with me know if you had this on your resume or CV before, usually in the course, or if we've worked together mentoring, I will tell you that's not a good place for it. You should be weaving it into your experience. But I just wanted to remind you all, this is what a CV or a resume looks like when people insert the skills right in the middle. And not everybody has some kind of summary. Many of you have your bio para there now, or some kinds of summaries that talk about your key accomplishments, aiming at where you're going. But look at this. I put together a couple different resumes to show you the difficulty with skills lists. Core skills, like key skills. What does that mean to you? It means something different to me. But this person is presently working as a learning facilitator. And yet the first thing, because we read left to right and bottom to top, so top left says proposal development and program design, but her title is learning facilitator, says Sue. And then team leadership, advocacy campaigns, and fundraising. I'm thinking that's not usually what a learning facilitator does, but maybe she has to raise money. I don't know. And then training of large teams. I thought, oh, finally, I'm getting to something on learning. This is not a criticism. It's just, I want you to understand how someone, even me, who's invested in every one of you succeeding, that's how I read these. And I think, I don't know what I'm supposed to make out of this. A few weeks ago, no, a couple months ago, I think Ron and I often stay on after these calls or set up a separate call. We were doing some planning and I said, Ron, I have decided that we've got to have some way to have skills closer to the experience, because as you may recall, I often recommend make sure that the words that, especially when you're tailoring your resume, words in a job posting or words that the kind of career you want to be moving into or the promotion you want to be moving into, the kinds of phrases that resonate with the people that are doing that work or hiring people to do that work. You need to have those phrases in there. So don't tell me that you're a project manager. That's fine, but also give me some evidence for it. That will sound familiar to you. But if we go back to skills now, and I take that middle section out of the CV, or the beginning of the CV I just showed you. First of all, look how much space we've saved at the bottom. And now we see in the first half of the screen that people would get immediately to, oh, she's this, she's aiming at this, and she's already doing learning facilitation. Here's what I'm proposing. That's why I said today's a whole lot of actionable advice. I thought a lot about what could we do, because sometimes there's stuff on the front of our resume and then at the back side is where all the skills are. Sue speaks 3 languages passably if she has to order food. And Sue knows a little bit about data analysis with the old Epi info or whatever my skills are. That stuff's at the back and maybe some of it's more important. And I thought, what about if we use this, again, thinking of your resume or long CV or short CV content as a way to make it more scannable by putting underneath your evidence-based statements about what you've been doing in your job or are doing. Use this for top 3 skills that you're demonstrating there to make it clear to people. So I'm saying that if you do this, then suddenly you become, oops, did I just jump ahead and I thought I wasn't there yet? Oh, I did. You become, it becomes scannable, it becomes focused, and it's also memorable because they won't, number one, they won't have seen this yet. I haven't seen anybody doing this or none of the resume writers recommending this. But this also lets you be in charge of what skills you want them to know. Now, we did do a few weeks, a month and a half ago, a session on the fact that LinkedIn is now letting you link your skills to experience on LinkedIn, which is great. So you may remember or not remember these slides. Someone that we've worked with is a journalist. Her very first job, most recent job, she didn't mention journalism in her skills. It's all about video editing and then volunteer management. But she did put journalism first in her other. And maybe that's appropriate for her because of what she's doing now. But it was noticeable to me that she had the opportunity to put journalism even in what she's doing right now, because she said her work is really journalistic and editorial without clicking the see more. 2 weeks ago, I believe, LinkedIn suddenly unveiled the opportunity to add 5 skills, your top 5 skills, to your about section. So I thought today I better go look and see how to do this, because I knew it was there. I hadn't seen it on anybody's yet. So when you go to edit your profile, this is you edit your about section. You can see now down at the bottom, it says add your skills. And I did do that. Now, when I first went in there, I missed the fact that after I clicked add skill, I started typing stuff. You got to scroll down. I forgot to take a picture of this, but you got to scroll down and it actually says, here are the top skills in your list already. And we talked, for those who were here when we did linking skills to experience, when we talked about linking on LinkedIn, using your skills on experiences, you've got to reorder your skills list to make sure you have your top 3 skills as your strongest ones of what you want to be doing. So I added my 5. And then this is what it shows. And I'm so thrilled about this. So normally we know that we see 3 to 4 lines of your about section, but you don't have to click see more. You can immediately, LinkedIn is immediately showing you what are the top 5 skills that you, all of you on this call, you bring that LinkedIn can see. And again, those words become searchable if recruiters or other professionals are looking for you. All right, so what should you do? I have a question. Are you ready to try to do these things and update your resume? It's about time. Usually in June, I announce this is your time to update your resume, folks. Don't forget to look at it and see what changes you've got, what intellectual property you want to put on it. But I don't know if you will find this appealing or not. I think it's a good discipline. It's not a discipline. It's a good activity to give you more reflection on what 3 skills would I mention for my present job. It's up to you if you want to do it, but it's definitely actionable. And that also then will get you connected with what skills do you want to mention on your about section, which is a very new area that you can now add to your LinkedIn. I want you to continue to do things that will get you known and noticed virtually. And yesterday I get a weekly email that Hannah Morgan puts out. Some of you may remember that I've mentioned her before. She does a weekly newsletter called Sunday Summary. It's full of advice, and she has it in sections so you can see her major topic and then other things of interest that she puts out. It's always good information. You can go through the newsletter and not click through to the full blog post. But she happened to also yesterday add this is a week ago, but she referred to it in something she put out yesterday in this post, that LinkedIn is reporting that job seekers who update their status weekly are more likely to be contacted by recruiters. I want you to think more broadly. If I'm updating my status weekly, now this doesn't mean, oh, I got an award or I've got to change my about section. It means postings, commenting, any activity that shows LinkedIn that you're active, that you're alive and participating on LinkedIn is going to get you more points in the algorithm. And in fact, Richard Vanderblom, who does the algorithm report, just posted a post on this, and then a friend of his made a carousel. So if any of you are interested in that breakdown about what gets you more engagement and all of that, if you really want to count points, even after he went through it, he said, don't worry about the points, just go ahead and post and be engaged. So I say post, but that also includes commenting. That also includes recognizing and commenting, or maybe writing a personal note when someone connects with you that you don't expect. And I did want to let you know, some of you know that I did this, others don't, but in the last month, I've talked to 2 different groups about, the focus was really on how do you quantify your accomplishments if you're a knowledge worker or you're not doing sales where you have hard numbers to be able to say, I sold $1 million in cars last week. This again was a reflection on my part of the fact that a lot of what we're seeing in scannability, and even what some of you learned recently, because some of you are out of the January cohort, learned from the work that Ron and I have done with you, is that I'm asking you to even reframe how we rewrite how we should write our results statements to get them even more evidence-based. And by that, I mean getting to what you actually contribute to. So I went through my CV yesterday thinking about this topic today and what I could show and what I couldn't. And I thought, oh my gosh, now I understand I haven't even done a good job on this. What I'd like you to do is think about this formula. And I've also given you a link for the Oh, I forgot to put the link in, I realized, for getting the worksheet for it. But everybody who's on this call, anybody who's watching it in replay, we don't just do our work in isolation. Our work goes on to help someone else do something with the results of our work. So if I'm a trainer, I'm training new healthcare workers. Those healthcare workers go on to implement an intervention that someone else manages. If I'm a researcher, I collect data. The results of that is used by a community, a policy group, whatever, to make things happen. So that's the value chain of how work is done as knowledge workers primarily. The way in which I think we can get more airplay, and get better scannability of your evidence is thinking again on the left side. How do we get a verb that gets to the outcome? Then we talk about the how, and that's usually your role, what you're doing right now, or when you have a job, what you do in that job. Maybe for whom, you might say it, you might not. Sometimes it's for the PI, sometimes it's for community groups, maybe it's a briefing for Ministry of Health officials. And occasionally, not always, people will write, especially if there's specific tools that a job posting is looking for, or because you taught yourself how to make an interactive database, and that's important. I did do a presentation last week on a LinkedIn Live. I've now done it for a group of public health people that are just starting out, and I've done it for Brenda Meller's Experience Rich People, which is 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, those of us who are aging. How do we tell our story? And I got a lot of positive feedback. This is a job posting, someone's result statement that I rewrote and used in this formula. The whole purpose of this worksheet is to give you boxes to fill in so that formula makes sense. And I've worked with a few people who submitted before and after changes to try to get that, to help them think through, how do I acknowledge that I'm not just training people, someone who submitted last week, I'm not just training people, but I'm actually working with executives on change management to get them to do online learning differently. So think about whether this would work for you. In the references, I put Hannah's update that I just showed you. When you click through that, you can find her newsletter called Sunday Summary, or if no one can find it, let me know. When it comes Sunday, I can forward it to you. And I do have a link to my part of my presentation. It's 30 minutes start to finish, chit chat with Brenda at the beginning and chit chat at the end. I'm proudly saying I think I did it in less than 18 minutes. I was allotted 20. If you want to see a streamlined view of how this formula could be useful and what it could do for you. As always, I like to show the photos that I've used. The one on the far right is in there because eventually I'm going to be using it for another question. But I'm going to stop here and ask Ron for comments before we open this up for discussion.
Yeah, I thought it was really interesting, this idea of putting skills right in close to the job. It's obvious that's starting to happen in LinkedIn, and it's a tool and its approach with LinkedIn. And it makes a lot of sense to me now that you show it. It makes a lot of sense to do something like that with a resume or a CV. It creates this kind of parallel thing. And once again, it makes it easier if you can have everything fairly consistent. Yeah, I really like that idea. That's the first time I really thought about it, and I think it's a great concept. Yeah, that was my main comment. I think I really like that approach.
Thanks, Ron. I appreciate it. Anybody else have comments or questions on what I presented today? It turned out to be a lot of updates on LinkedIn, and a lot of, as I said, I've been rethinking what is it you all are telling me you're seeing and doing, and how can Ron and I be more helpful in that? Stephanie, you're unmuted.
So I appreciate you always encouraging us to update the resume, because June month is also mid-year performance review month. So I find that I'm able to update the resume and cross that over and use it also for the mid-year. So it's 2 for 1. So thank you very much.
Perfect. Thanks, Stephanie. Rena, you have your hand raised. Go ahead.
Yeah, hi, Sue. Again, once again, thank you for your insights and inputs on the resume building bit. It's always been helpful, your post as well as your webinars and the lectures that I've been a part of. My one query was regarding the top skills in the resume. Would it make sense to also include that in your professional summary based on the tailored job description that you're applying to? Something like, I have so and so years of experience in these 3 or 4 areas, which sort of reflects the skills and the expertise that you're bringing to the job. Would it make sense to include it there as well?
It's a good question. And in fact, when I was reviewing CVs and resumes over the weekend to find a good example and get some specifics, there were a couple people that included those things in the summary. The challenge and the risk if putting it into the summary for me is it brings it down to too low of a level. When you start to talk about skills, skills are not experience. Experience is what you get when you put skills into practice. A skill by itself, many of you have heard me say this, a skill is nothing but showing that you've learned something until you can show you've done something with it. And Ron knows this better than me because that was his whole career, getting people to put skills into experience. I think that your opportunity is, if you are tailoring to a job posting, if you are tailoring for a promotion or a fellowship, if there's something specific that is going to be part of the job, an important part of the job, an important part of the fellowship. For example, if it's a qualitative research fellowship, you want to mention that you've done qualitative research, but not the skill itself. What have you done to use it? So if you want to mention it, that would be fine. I saw someone yesterday, someone's CV said, I do this. There were like 4 different analytic methodologies for research. There were 2 video editing things, and then I think there were 3 like customer relationship management softwares, and it was a string of 4 lines. So Rena, I think it's the kind of thing where even if you write it and show it to me, you and Ron might have 2 different versions of it, and I might say yes to yours and no to Ron. I don't say it quite like that. But I think what I'd rather have you do is think about using your professional summary to tell your story. So they have it in their mind, who is this person? How are they immediately going to solve my problem? And then the skills under the resume, and the reason for only 3 is, I don't want you to distract people with another long skills list, like the middle of the page always ends up being, at least in a lot of US resumes. But it's a way to get people to look through your accomplishments and make sure that you've either used a phrase that you know you need to get in there, or to hit them hard with, I told you I was a project manager and I've listed as one of my top 3 skills. And Ron, I see you shaking your head, so I'm assuming you have something to say too.
Yeah, for me, it's in the text of the, in fact, your illustration of how to get a good accomplishment-based or statement so that you have something that expresses that 5-part approach to stating something. The skill is embedded in that. And so if you, in your first position, like we talked about, this idea of scannability or get them to scroll. So you've got me to the part where I'm looking at your first job. I want to see in those accomplishments that you're listing there, it should be clear what skill is being applied because of the nature or the way that it's been shown. I don't think you have to necessarily, oh, by the way, I use my analytical skills in this, but rather the fact that you did an analysis or you produced a report based on a research or something like that should be evidence in that particular position. The idea, from what I'm seeing here, is to summarize at the bottom of that position 3 skills that are key to all the accomplishments or the major accomplishments in there. And that seems like a reasonable thing to do. The thing that I immediately thought of is what Sue said, is that all of a sudden now you've got a skills list in the middle or a panel over here with skills and so on, and they're hanging out there to dry basically. But if it's attached directly to a current position or a position and you've already listed your accomplishments, then when you see a few skills that are there, you're just re-highlighting them. They should already be evident in the document so far. So there shouldn't be a surprise there. It's just kind of, I would see it as a reminder. These are the skills that are key especially if those skills are somehow attached to a new position that you're applying for or something like that. Is that useful?
Yeah, I think that's really helpful. Thank you so much.
Great. Thank you for the question. Anybody else have comments or questions? All right. I am going to then go to the chat box and take the time to answer a question that I got wrong when I talked about it a few weeks ago. Stephanie, I'm going to mention you because you sent me a note and said you'd be here today. It's a question Stephanie had. A few weeks ago, we talked about the fact that LinkedIn had added video messaging, as well as both of these things, video and audio, you can do on LinkedIn on your mobile. You have to do it off the desktop. So the audio has been around for a while. It's a 60-second audio message, and you can keep recording 60, 60, 60 if you have a lot to say. I did not test it out, Stephanie. So I took the word of the LinkedIn experts who were saying, oh yeah, and you should send a video message, because Stephanie sent me a note and said, Sue, can we talk about on Monday that when I went to the video button that's at the top, it asked me to arrange a Zoom meeting, a Teams meeting, and something else, someone else's meeting, one of the purveyors of it. So I don't know, Stephanie, where I got the misconception or whether it's a feature not rolled out to everybody yet. But I appreciated that you asked about it, because you also were trying to use it to communicate to colleagues, and video maybe feels more friendly than audio. So I do have a suggestion, but first I want to hear from you. Did I interpret everything correctly in terms of what you were asking about?
Yes, I think the concept is great if LinkedIn would move to where you can do a video message. But when I went in, and it was as if I was in Teams, to where I could click on that button and it'll invite somebody into the meeting. So that would have meant that my colleague would need to be on LinkedIn at the same time.
Yeah.
I didn't realize you could also do a voicemail, because it was an instance to where it was just going to be easier to do video or a voice. So is that also in the same area on LinkedIn?
No, it's actually down at the bottom. So voice
Okay.
record is where you would type a message in on the far right. You press the microphone. Now, here's the thing. You got to press and hold it, so you're holding your phone, you're pressing it, you're trying to think, what am I going to say? And then the time's ticking down the 60 seconds. But you can always abandon it if you get in the middle and get tongue-tied. Here's my recommendation if you do want to use video. It's a workaround. You can record video on your phone. Use your native camera app, Android or iOS. You can record it in any of the myriad apps that we have on our phone for different kinds of video. You could record a video message, and then you just attach the file or put the link to the file in your message box in LinkedIn. So if you're direct messaging that person, you could attach that and just say, you could say, I'm just sending you a video message. I don't think that's ideal, but until I find out why I made the mistake I made, or whether it really is rolling out, that at least is an option to use both audio and video. And I'm finding people, and myself included, I go up and down on audio. Occasionally I recorded something the other day, but then other times I'll just take the time to type a few things in. So Ron, did you have any comments on that?
Yeah, I just went to visit LinkedIn just to see. And the first thing I saw, once again, I'm not a phone user, so I can't do that. But I immediately saw the option of posting a video. So that's how you can do it. Now, you and I have communicated on occasion with video messages or audio messages. And so there's some utility in doing it. And sometimes it's faster, sometimes it's not. And I like the idea of if you want to personalize it or something, where you want to show some items in a slideshow or something, just say, here, by the way, I saw this. I can see some utility in creating a video comment relating to someone. So yeah, I can see utility of it. It'll be interesting to see how it rolls out and how many people use it. I had not seen much myself.
Yeah.
I mean, I have seen people posting significant videos, because that's the main post, was some kind of a piece of content. That was the main post, but
Right,
to
but
have
not in
a
messaging.
short- Yeah.
Thank you. That's great. Anybody else have any comments? We're a little after 4:30. It's great to see so many of you here. Thank you for being interested and going along with us on our mentor time. Early July, late June. Wait, we're in June. Boy, am I confused. That's right. It's July 3rd. It's the day before the American holiday. And if you don't want to come, you don't have to. And if you're not in the US, it won't bother you to come anyway if you choose to. Thanks for those who signed up for recurring appointments, because you will get the video, the captioned video recording, whether or not you're able to come, because I know some of you are late in your time zone, and we appreciate it. Ron, will you please close the meeting for me? For us? You're on mute.
Yes, I'm on mute. I was lost as well. So thanks very much, everyone, for coming. This is a good size group. It's delightful to see so many who have an interest in these topics. And thank you, Sue, for all the preparation you've done on it. And I like how you weave together the issues on the various aspects of the CV, and then included in the style, the way to improve your accomplishment statements and so on. So thanks for doing that. And everyone, we'll see you in about a month's time.